Hi, my name is William. I'm a guitar picker and I'm going to try and provide some lessons for my grandson. And I thought since I'm going through this, I'll go ahead and provide lessons to everybody. So I'm just going to put this stuff on the web. And I've got a different way of looking at things a little bit. I kind of know the standard way of looking at things and how to approach them and all that. But I'm one of those guys that thinks if you're going to learn guitar, you should learn as fast as you can. And how fast is that? It's as fast as you can go. So I probably will cram a little more in here than the average lesson, but I don't want to waste a lot of time making guitar boring for you. Uh, I just want to teach you as much as I can in one lesson. The nice thing about video lessons online is that you could take one and you can practice that for a month and then go to lesson two. If you're on a schedule with a face-to-face teacher, he's going to teach you and expect you to know it when you get back there. It makes it a little bit harder for you. You got to do a lot more practice. So my grandson lives quite a ways away, and it's just not practical to drive up to where he lives once a week and sit down and teach him how to play guitar. So I'm going to try it this way. And I thought, well, maybe somebody else can get something out of this too. So I'm going to jump right in. I've been playing guitar since 1955. And I didn't learn anything about music theory until about a few years ago. And you can do the math, figure out how old I am and when I started learning music theory. It's pretty easy to figure that out. So one thing I want to start right off is saying, I've seen guys teaching guitar and they say, well, I'm going to teach you without using music theory. And the fact is that they have to use music theory. Anytime you explain what you're doing on any instrument, a guitar or whatever, you're using music theory to explain that. If you tell somebody, put your fingers here on these frets and play these notes, you're talking about music theory. I think the big debate between music theory and playing by ear is, are you using your own music theory system or are you using the accepted one, the one that's taught in schools and colleges and things like that? And then the other really big piece of it is I think people equate music theory with reading music. And I can tell you that you can learn music theory and not be able to sight read, because I can't sight read, but I understand music theory. I had my own way of looking at music theory up until a few years ago. Then I started looking at, the accepted music theory, the body of knowledge, and I can see a lot of advantages in that. And if you don't give it a try, you'll always wish you had. So I don't want to discourage you by using that word, but it's part of the learning process. And I didn't think I knew anything about music theory till I started learning music theory. I realized that I did know, but I just didn't use the same terms. I had my own way of describing what I was doing, but it was the same. So enough said on all of that. We'll get started. I'm just going to go over the basics. Get parts of a guitar, the body. This decorative area here is the face of the guitar or the soundboard. Tone board, you can give it all kinds of names. It vibrates on sympathetic vibrations to the strings. This vibrations are passed through the bridge, and then it kind of focuses the sound, comes out right here in the sound hole. Okay, this is the bridge. This little white, I don't know, this is probably plastic on this guitar, but this white piece here that the strings are suspended on it, and that is one end of a suspension system that allows the strings to be suspended above the body of the guitar and the fretboard and vibrate. Then on this end you have the nut here. It's kind of hard to look at the camera and guide your hand. You have the nut, which is the other end of the suspension system. The strings are suspended between the nut and the bridge. Then you go up here to the tuning gears. This tightens and loosens the strings, which raises the pitch higher or lower. Or you can say it changes the notes, but it's basically tighter is higher, looser is lower. Pretty easy to remember that. Then the other area of note is the fretboard itself. It's divided into half steps or semitones. In the Western music, there's 12 semitones, or 12 half steps, or 12 half tones, whatever term you want to use. Um, and I always start from C and work my way through the alphabet. And I do that because C major is kind of like, it's like the foundation for music. It's the major scale is a collection of notes out of the 12 that don't have sharps and flats, and it's the foundation and the building block for everything else. And there might be some people that argue with that, but the way I look at it and the way I understand it, C major, that C major scale is the foundation and building blocks for everything else. And I think I'll show that more as I go through here. And I'm not out to challenge anybody or say I'm right and say you're wrong or anything like that. I'm just teaching guitar the way I know it and the way I play it. So hope that works for you. So we know the parts of the guitar. Now let's talk about tuning the guitar. You've got 6 strings from high to low or low to high, either way you want to go. Usually I'll just say, second string, third string. I play guitar from the high to the low. I think of it that way. So first string, second string, third string, fourth string, fifth string, sixth string, high to low. Same way I make Native American style flutes, and I make the first hole is the low end. So for me, it's hole 1 through hole 6 coming from low to high. Most players think of the first hole as the top one, the one that's closest to them. So it's as long as we understand what we're saying to each other, that's all that really matters. So I count high to low, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to go down the strings here and tell you what they are. The lowest string here is an E. That's tuned to an E. The next string is tuned to an A. The next string is tuned to a D. And the next string is tuned to a G. The next string is tuned to a B. And the high string is tuned to an E, actually a couple of octaves up from the low string. They're same pitch, or no, excuse me, same note, different pitch. And it's 2 octaves up. Your middle octave is here, is low, middle, and high. And then you got another octave way down here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 octaves and some on the guitar. So it's more than 4 octaves on the guitar. So again, low to high, E, A, D, G, B, E. So you could pull out your tuner and you could turn it on, and most of them anymore are self-detecting. You can just strike this note till it reads E, and depending on your tuner, some turn green, some have an arrow that points right to the middle and lights come on. But you just tune it to the E, tune it to the A, tune it to the D, the G, the B, and the E. The one thing you want to be careful of is you can be off and you start tuning and you're going in the wrong direction, and what happens is you tighten your string till it breaks, trying to find the right note. So it's probably a real good idea. The first thing you do is to set, if your tuner has it, have it play an A tone, a reference tone, and get your A string close. And then start tuning your A string first and switch it over to the tuner mode and fine tune it down where it's right. And then just kind of use that as a guide. If this string sounds a lot like this string, then you're too high. It's kind of common sense, but I've seen guys break strings trying to tune them on a tuner because they were way too tight and they were searching for that correct note, and they were an octave or 2 off, and boom, the string pops. But most of the time you're going to find yourself maybe out at the campfire or down by the lake or wherever, out on a camping trip, whatever. You're not going to have a tuner handy, so it's a good idea to know how to tune a guitar. And so I'm going to show you You start with the 5th fret. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? And just for explanation, if I say play the 5th fret, I'm talking about not putting your finger on the fret, but just behind it. So think of the space behind the fret as where you put your finger. The fret is your guide. You put your finger behind the fret. If I say play the 5th fret, I really mean put your finger on the 5th space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They got handy dots here. 3, 5, 7, 9, and 12. So if you're going to count, if I say play the 5th fret, you're going to go to the 3rd dot, 7th fret, so forth. But those are a nice guide. They also guide you through the major scales and things. They're very functional little dots. They're not there for decoration. But anyway, to tune the guitar, you get one of your strings tuned to pitch, whether you have a tuning fork or a piano or somebody that's got an instrument that's in tune. You have them play one of the tones of one of your strings, and you match that tone. And then from there, you can match the rest. So you're going to use the 5th fret to tune to the next highest string. And 5th fret, next highest string. 5th fret, next highest string. Now when you get to the B string, that's a half step off. So you have to go on the G string. You have to do it right there on the 4th fret. So anytime you're tuning the G string, you're going to tune it to the B string. You have to use the 4th fret. It's hard to see there, get my hand out of the way. And then this again goes back to the other one. The 5th fret. So counting from low to high, each string is tuned to a 4th. And that has to do with scale degrees, and we'll talk about that more later. But as you go up the E to an A, that's the 4th degree of the major scale. A is found right here on the 5th fret as well, so you can go E, F, G, A, and you got it. Same with D. If you're tuning the D string, A, B, C, D. See, so it's just matching notes. Happens to be the 5th fret, except when you're tuning the G. If you're tuning the B string to the G string or the G string to the B string, either way, you have to do it on the 4th fret. All the other strings do it on the 5th fret. So if you do that and you know the string names, low to high, E, A, D, G, B, E. If you know those, use the 5th fret for everything except the 2nd string and the 3rd string, the B string and the G string. They have to be tuned on the 4th fret. So that's how you tune your guitar. The way you tell if it's right or wrong, you have a guitar that's out of tune, okay? You can hear that those are not the same note. Is it higher or lower? Well, I can tell you it's lower because I just down-tuned it, but I can also hear that it's lower. But if you can't figure it out, you put your finger on the 5th fret, where that's where you would tune it. Now you start going down, or let's try going up. Getting further away, aren't they? So that means it's loose. Just about a half step off. Pretty close. So that means I've got to tighten it. So I figure out which way is tightening on the nut, and I raise it up. Now it's close, but it's off, and you can hear kind of a sour sound, kind of a warbly sound actually. It's kind of going wah, 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 about that fast. Wah, 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 wah. If it's further off, it gets a little faster. But the closer you get, the slower that warble gets. You can hear it now. It's going wah, 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 wah. It's a little slower. So you keep tightening it. Now it's a real slow. Whoa, whoa, whoa. It's almost there. Now there's no warble. They're in tune. So that's how you do it by ear. You listen for that. You get it close, so you'll hear it warbling. As you get closer to the right pitch, it'll slow down the warbling, it'll stop warbling at some point, and then you've got it. So to recap, always tune at the 5th fret, put your finger on the lower string, and tune the high string to the low string, or vice versa, either way, but you put your 5th fret on the lower string and then tune the 2 to pitch on the 5th fret. The exception is the G string and the B string. Those have to be tuned on the 4th fret. All right, so E, E, same note. B, B, same note. G, G, same note. D, D, same note. A, A. And the reason guitarists tune that way is because it's accommodating the human hand. You can only do so much with your hand to get a shape, you know. There's only so many ways you can do your hands, and the best way seems to be that tuning. Okay, now how do we find the notes on a guitar string? You need to know that, and you can memorize it. You can also just figure out how to do it, and at some point you'll get fast enough. Number one, these dots are reference points. On the low string, it's G, A, B. The double dots is the octave. G, A, B. This one splits the C and the D. Okay. We're talking interval patterns here, and these frets are the interval, the half steps. These are the half steps. Okay. Now you go back to the major scale for C. C to D and D to E are both whole steps. So it's 2 half steps, 2 half steps, and then B to C, or E to C, or F, excuse me, E to F is a half step. Then F to G whole, F to G to A is whole, A to B is whole, B to C is half, so forth. So you work down the string. We know it's open E. So E to F is what? A half step or a whole step? It's a half step. E to F and B to C, those two are half steps apart. Everything else is whole steps. So you only got to remember that B and C and E and F are half steps. The rest of them are whole steps. So that's what you got to remember. So E to F is a half step. So from open to the 1st fret is a half step. There's your F. F to G is a whole step. So you go 2 frets. There's your G, and it happens to be on the dot. Then you go a whole step, G to A, that's 2 half steps. There's A, happens to be on that dot. Then 2 half steps again, or a whole step, to B, it's on that dot. Then B to C is a half step. So a half step makes C, and then two half steps or a whole step to D. Go 1, 2, and then 2 more to get to E. You can go on up, half step F, whole step G, right on up. Okay, so 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1. Just remember that. When you're trying to find notes, it's not so much that pattern, but it's B and C are half steps, and E and F are half steps. Everything else whole steps. So now we can find on the E string, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. Eventually you'll get it memorized, but this is how you figure it out. A string. So A is your first note. What's next in the alphabet? B. Is that a whole step or a half step? It's a whole step. So B is here. That's 2 frets. Then B to C is a half step. C to D is 2 half steps. D to E is 2 half steps. E to F, that's the one that only has a half step. So E, F, 2 steps to G, 2 steps to A, you're at the octave. The D string, same idea. You're starting on D, what's next? E. D to E is a whole step, so 1 fret, 2 frets. There's E. E to F is a half step, so it's 1 fret. F to G is 2 half steps or a whole step, so it's 1, 2. A, right there. B is 2 steps, or 2 half steps, or 1 whole step. B, notice that one of those dots there. G, A, B, G, A, B. Those dots are your guide. They're a quick reference, so you know where you're at on the fretboard without having to count. Now we're on the G string. G, what's the next note up? A, it's a whole step. I'll have to pause the recording, the phone's ringing, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back from taking a phone call, and I believe I was talking about finding the notes on a string, and I think I did enough of them to go through, to for you to understand the process. But I'll start on the G string and go to the highest just to be sure I covered them all. On the G string, open note is G, obviously, and then your next note up alphabetically is A, and that's a whole step or two half steps. So 1, 2, there's an A on the G string, and then B is a whole step or two half steps. B to C is a half step. That's part of that thing you have to memorize. There's a C, and notice it's on the dot. Then you got your D, if it's just two half steps up. Then your E is two half steps up. Then F. And then G is again two half steps up, and that's the octave. The B string open. B to C is a half step, so you're going to play the first fret. You're going to go 2 to the D, two half steps to the E, then a half step to the F, then a whole step to G, then a whole step to A, and a whole step to B. And the E string, the high E string, is just like the low string. Open, half step to F, whole step to G, whole step to A, whole step to B, whole step to C, whole step to D, and a whole step to E. Okay, so that's, we've covered the parts of a guitar, how to tune the guitar, what the names of the open strings are. I think in this lesson I'll kind of get us started on chords. So for the chords, I want to explain how to form a chord so that you have a foundation. If you're someplace and you can't remember how to get a chord, you could write out the scale, major scale, and figure out how to play the chord from that. So a chord is, if you think of C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 respectively. So each note in the scale can be thought of as a degree, a scale degree. So if C is a 1, then D would be 2, E would be 3, F would be 4, G is 5, A is 6, B is 7, and then back to the octave 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So to form a chord out of the major scale, you play the 1, the 3, and the 5. So 1, 3, and 5, that's how you make a major chord. And you do it out of the major scale. Regardless of what chord, what key you're in and all that, it's 1, 3, and 5. So we're working in the key of C. We're going to start with a C. And then we'll go on further from there in the next lesson. So to get a C, you're going to play a C. You're going to count up 1, 2, 3, which is the 3 is E, C, D, E, and then 4, 5 would be E, F, G. So a C, E, and a G make a C chord. So it takes 3 notes. You can make a chord that's kind of an inferred chord with 2 notes. Like if you play a C and a G, you got a C chord, but it's neither major nor minor. You could play either mode across that, but to get a full chord that has the established flavor, it takes 3 chords. So C, E, and G, we just learned that from counting 1, 3, and 5, and there's those scale degrees 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just counting up. Give your notes numbers and use those numbers 1, 3, and 5. So the 1 is C, A, B, C on the C string there, right there. Okay, and you got to figure out which finger am I going to put there. Well, if you put the wrong finger there, you're going to have some trouble. So time will teach you, but you want to put, as you go across the fretboard, you got to be what's comfortable. So we'll put the 3rd finger on the 3rd fret for that C note of the A string. And then E, we're going to go to a different next string up, That's a D string, so D, E, D sharp, E, so 3 and 2. The next one up is G, so we have a C chord, C, E, and G. And I'm going to try to turn this around so you can see. It's kind of hard because I'm looking backwards, but 1, 2, and then the G string open. Then when the next string down is a B, so the first fret it would be a C. And then we have the open string for a full C chord. And the general rule is your lowest note is where you start strumming. You don't strum below that. So I'm going to show you from this angle. Open E string, the high one, first fret, first finger. Then we go to the open G, then we go to the second fret on the fourth string. So, and then we hit the third fret on the A string. So, and that's hard to see from this angle, but there, I think you can see it there. There's C note, E note, C note, and an open G and open E. So third finger, third fret of the A string, second finger, second fret of the D string, and the first finger, first fret. So this is pretty easy. Third finger, third fret, second finger, second fret, first finger, first fret. Remember that much. So it's A string, D string, and the B string. And you play the last 5 strings. So that's your C chord. So we're gonna work our way up through them in subsequent lessons. So this is the beginning lesson of a series of lessons. I don't know how far I'm going to take this out. It just all depends on how things are going. If I'm getting a good response, maybe a lot of comments in this comment section or something like that, somebody letting me know that it's helping, then I'll probably continue, because if it helps, that's great. And I don't have a guitar course that I can sell you. None of that stuff. I don't have any secrets to playing this and secrets to playing that. I don't have any big secrets. I'm just going to teach you how to play guitar. And it's not going to be like, how do I play a certain song, or how do I play a certain style. I'm just going to teach you how to play guitar, and then you can adapt your style from that. But it's good to just know how to play the instrument. And I think as we get into it, the different styles will kind of find their way in. But I'm not going to set out to teach you rock guitar. I'm not going to set out to teach you country guitar or classical guitar. But I'm going to teach you where the notes are, how to play scales, how to play the chords, how to build the chords, how to make the, how to do the scales, what the scales are. And eventually I'll get into the modal playing and all of that. But it's one step at a time. I just want you to be able to play chords and notes and frets and all that, scales. So one thing I want to say is ergonomics. The one thing that I see new guitar players, is they have just a hard time getting the string to sound clear. And it's all technique. But, it takes the lightest pressure to make a tone. If I take that string right there and just push down lightly, once it touches the fret, it's got a clean tone, right? I don't have to mash down till my fingernail turns white. See that? I just touch it. As soon as that string hits the fret, that's hard enough. So you don't need to get a gorilla grip on this fretboard. You don't need to squeeze really hard. All you have to do is touch the string till it touches the fret. And then same here, till it touches the fret. Till it touches the fret. If you find yourself having to work and squeeze, it's because you're not ergonomically correct yet. When you get in a good ergonomic correct position, you're going to find it's a whole lot easier to mash those strings down. And what I want to show you, the C chord is a good example. Okay, so if I take my open hand, and I get up here, take my open hand, if I just let it naturally close, like that, right? Okay, I didn't do anything but just let my fingers come together in a loose cluster, like I'm going to squeeze, only just loose. Now, if I turn and look, do you see that? How this finger's way down here, then these two are together, and they're up a ways from that one. If I look at the C chord, see, I didn't move my fingers. I got this loose, it's hard to orient here, that loose grip there. It's just loose fingers, just bring them together like that. That is, it's a natural C already. You see that? That's pretty handy the way those guys decided to tune those strings so that you can just put your finger, you can just close your hand loosely, put it on there, and you've got a C chord. Notice my wrist is straight. The palm of my hand is up against the fretboard. It's not out here somewhere. The minute you cock that wrist, then you're making it hard to put your fingers down. And so now that it's hard, then you happen to squeeze some of them really hard because it's awkward. And then your hand's going to sleep, your fingers are getting sore, and all of that. So think in terms of, I want to play relaxed and as natural a position as I can. Okay, and there's sometimes that it isn't going to be natural. You won't be able to, because some chords are just kind of ugly contortion of your fingers, but even at that, I'm going to get that's kind of a, what's that, that's a 13, maybe the Hendrix chord. Looks kind of weird, but I want you to look. See on my hand, my wrist is straight. It's not cocked. I can see it from that angle. You can see it from this angle. It's not cocked. But also notice that my fingers are not straight across the fretboard. They're coming in at an angle. And that's because my wrist is straight. And my fingers, when I close my hand, they don't come down at right angles. They're not pushed over this. They're not pushed over this way to be straight. They come down and they are at an angle. Do you see that angle? Look at the line of my wrist. My fingers are coming in at an angle. That same angle is there. I'm coming from the top of the guitar, the nut. I'm angling towards the body of the guitar. I'm not straight across. So rule of thumb, try to keep your wrists natural and straight. Try to keep your fingers coming at the fretboard from an angle, regardless of the chord I'm getting. Unless I'm playing a bar chord, then you got to lay this straight across. But even then, with a bar chord, my wrist is straight from the side. It's back up here, there. It's fairly straight. Depends on if my guitar, how my guitar is, I'm holding it. And you see guys that, they put the guitar down on their knees, and that looks cool, but when you put your guitar down on your knees, then your hand just has to do that to play, and then pretty soon you're going to have a problem. Yeah, so, raise your guitar up here. Get that fretboard up in front of you so that your hand comes naturally to the guitar. How high do you place it? Well, if you take your elbow and bend it, then put your guitar in it. Don't put your guitar down here and then put your hand on the guitar. Figure out where your comfortable place is with your hand, and then put your guitar in that. Do whatever you need to. Adjust your strap, whatever you need to do to make it fit. Ergonomics, I can't tell you enough about the importance of that, and being able to play comfortably without getting sore fingers, without having carpal tunnel and all those other repetitive motion problems and all of that. So I think that's probably a long enough first lesson. The parts of a guitar we covered. We covered how the string names. We covered how to tune, both by ear and with a tuner. And we covered how to find the notes on each string. And we also covered how to play a C chord and what we did to arrive at the C chord. If you can't remember how to put your fingers, think of 1, 3, and 5. Find those notes on the guitar, and then by the time you've done that, it'll probably come back to you where to place your fingers. So I'm beginning to rattle on, so that's probably enough. I hope somebody gets something useful out of this lesson. If so, join me on lesson number 2. I'm going to try to do one of these every 2 weeks. And until then, we'll catch you later. Bye-bye.